We're coming in hot to give you our hot takes on all the latest mental health news.
From headlines and memes to developments and breakthroughs.
We go into this show blind with the hopes of learning something new.
Before sharing some bunny hugs.
And leaving with our eyes wide open. I'm Nick.
And I'm Todd. And this is Mental Health Headline Hot Takes.
We're glad you're here. Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of Mental Health Headline Hot Takes.
I'm Todd, and I'm spinning the wheel to see who goes first. Spin again.
I'd
say it's the blue one.
Which says...
Nick goes first.
Okay.
Oh, and I've been wanting to land on a gratitude one, and it doesn't matter. It was right between that.
Well, I mean, you're rigging it, so why don't you just rig it for that?
I wouldn't do that.
So my article today is it's by Seth Gillihan. He's I think he's a psychologist or psychiatrist. I'm forgetting now. He's a PhD. We'll say that. This article was peer reviewed by Michelle Quirk as well. So I just want to say that. This is from Psychology Today. And the headline is, "Why does a difficult childhood affect adult mental health? A new study pulls apart the genetic and environmental effects." So
nature versus nurture.
Nature versus nurture. I thought it would be a good conversation to have. And I think, so what does it say before I share my opinion? Research has tied adverse childhood experiences to adult mental health. These studies were not conclusive since correlation does not equal causation, which is obviously true. And then a new study from Sweden, my old pals at Sweden, has showed that genes, adverse childhood experiences, which are called ACEs, and more general environmental variables play a role. So we're separating genetics versus environmental effects here. And it's showing that there's correlation between environmental effects and genetics, which I think is interesting because if you look at, and this isn't just mental health, I think this is diet, exercise, disease. I've always wondered, are these 100% genetically imprinted on you that you're going to be obese or you're going to have diabetes or you're going to get cancer? Or are there infiltrated habitual things like how you eat, how you sleep, what you experience growing up that are actually impacting you to become that way? So if your parents were obese and had bad eating habits and bad exercise habits, and maybe someone became a diabetic and then you follow the same path, is that because you followed the same path? Or is that because you were genetically predisposed to be obese and have diabetes? So I think it's the same here, right? If you have mental health struggles or illness, is that inherently genetic, or was it the environment you grew up in, what your experience was with your parents or your caregivers, and what role do these things play? Now, I'd imagine there's probably a bit of both, right? And it's possible that your genetics impact how you behave, which then could impact how you treat your children growing up. But I think it's something that we should explore. And I haven't in a long time, since probably maybe high school. I haven't thought that genetics were exclusively representative of people's health, both physical and mental.
I've talked to some people on the podcast, and it's interesting because these are professionals and stuff, but no one really knows. It's pretty hard to say, and I'm sure every case is different too. So it's not one size fits all. But it sounds like some people have maybe a genetic predisposition to maybe become or to get a personality disorder. So we'll say a borderline personality disorder. It's just, you just need the right triggers and the right traumas to turn that switch on, I guess. So that's kind of how I've understood it. It is a kind of a combination of both. Cause you look at families, two brothers grow up in the same family, the same environment, the same everything, but one goes one way, gets really obese, or one gets schizophrenia and the other one doesn't, or whatever. So, But yeah, I'm no professional though. I'm just
I think it's worth exploring.
What I've heard.
Yeah, I think it's worth exploring. And I think there was another piece in here. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
It is interesting to see, like, maybe not like when you zero in on individuals, but even just like geographically on Earth, like this country is prominently more happy. It's because it's something in their culture too, and the environment,
the socioeconomics of like the Scandinavian countries, the Scandinavian countries always being in the top happiest countries. Well, they all have healthcare. They have a good social safety net. They have childcare. They don't have to worry about taking care of their parents as much as they age because that's all built into their social programs. I remember when I worked for a Swedish company, there was a whole they have several political parties too. There was a whole political party whose whole platform was about adding bicycle lanes so that they could reduce people who felt like they had to drive because it wasn't safe to. It was something like that. If I have a Swedish listener, you can correct me, but I just remember thinking, I'm like, wow, I can't imagine what it would be like to have that little of economic issues that you have a whole party that's willing to run on bike lanes. And we can't get people mental and physical health care here. So whatever.
Yeah, there's a documentary on Netflix too. It's like the longest living people on Earth, and they all come from like this geographical area on Earth, and it's like because of their diet and because of it actually is a really poor country, but everyone's really happy because they all live with their family and stuff. It's a really close-knit society and stuff, and that's pretty interesting when you look at nature versus nurture.
Yeah.
Did you find the thing you were looking for?
Yeah. So the takeaway is clear. And there is a source here, and it was, it's on the bottom, JAMA Psychiatry. The takeaway is clear. A difficult childhood environment and genetic factors can contribute to mental illness in adulthoods. When kids experience serious adverse experience on top of these long-term risk factors, the likelihood of an adult psychiatric condition is even greater. So either way, your nurture is impacting your mental health. I think that's the takeaway. How much, how little, what's the ratio? Probably circumstantial depending on the situation, but I think that's where we could probably do some more research.
Interesting. So nurture is potentially more important than the nature.
It's at least piling on.
Yeah, that's right.
The research is showing it's at least piling on.
Well, yeah. Are we good? Should we?
Yeah.
Okay. So my article, it's Canadians rank low on global mental well-being list. 1 in 4 people, quote unquote, distressed. This is from Better Dwelling website. And it is kind of touches on the stuff we were just talking about. A mental health quote, oh man, I can't say that word, quotance. That's kind of the score they use.
Okay.
And it sounds like most English-speaking countries did not bounce back post-pandemic. So a lot of white English-speaking countries are still about where they were during the pandemic. And Spanish-speaking countries are thriving. So Dominican Republic is it's like one of the happiest places right now. And on the bottom, second from the bottom is the United Kingdom. That is interesting when you think of Western developed countries and all the wonderful things we have. And turns out we're all kind of miserable.
That's a society we've created. It's a society of consumerism. There's so many articles and studies have come out about loneliness and how it's like the epidemic of our time. And I think it is. It's partially, I'm lonely, it's like you get lonely. It's hard. And our society here doesn't foster human connection in the same way, like you said, a lot of the other ones do, where families are living together, or you don't have the economic stressors that you do in a lot of these countries that are, advanced Western civilizations.
Yeah. Like we're one of the richest countries, but the poorer countries are happier because they don't need all the crap.
Yeah.
It's like they have a nice little humble, modest house and a
great.
garden, and they go fishing and whatever they do. And and it's great. They're quite content. So it seems. It's funny how when you make things more complex, the more unhappy people can get. But they also found that boomers are thriving more than the youth.
Nice.
Especially in these countries.
I saw that. That's Boomers are the only people that are happy, apparently. Like
they're closer to death. Or
No, I actually saw an article I thought about pulling for that. It was, let me see if I can find it.
Okay, I'll just give a couple more while you look for that.
Yeah, go for it.
Researchers found 3 key correlations driving the lower scores: smartphones, processed foods, and a lesson that the Fast and Furious franchise has been trying to teach us all: family. That's what they said in there. It's actually kind of funny. Not that I've ever seen those movies, but the earlier a child receives their smartphone, the more likely they will be distressed.
I'm shocked.
This says, altogether, this suggests with greater wealth and economic development does not necessarily lead to greater mental well-being, but instead can lead to consumption patterns and a fraying of social bonds that are detrimental to our ability to thrive. The more wealthy a nation you're from, the harder it is to be happy in it, apparently.
Well, and I think people too, like, I know this is my situation, when I was younger, especially, it's that our society is like fostering a nothing is ever enough. It's the consumerism, right? It's like it's capitalism. You got to make more so you can buy more. You got to make more. And most people, at least in our country, aren't even paid a very fair wage that affords them the ability to buy a house and food. So it's like, what is there to be happy about when you're busting your ass 40 hours a week and then you got to go get a second job so you can pay rent? You know what I mean? I was just with my friend over the weekend, and she was like, I kind of want to sell my house, but my mortgage is cheaper than rent. And so I'm stuck.
Wow.
Yeah. And then interest rates are so high that it's not like she can sell her house and, use the equity to get a bigger house or something that's more suited for where she is. So she's stuck and, working 2 jobs. And this weekend was the first weekend she has had off the whole year. And it's like, and that's just to get by. That's just to pay mortgage and raise her daughter. It's wild.
Yeah, and she's not even around her daughter, raising her daughter, because she's having to work to pay for the daycare so that she can go to work.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, her daughter's 21 now, but this has been a consistent feature of experience.
Right. Yeah. And I know so many people that, like, for whatever reason, they get house poor. They have these amazing houses. They're like 25 years old and they have these brand new, beautiful houses. And I'm like, how the hell? I know what you do for a living. Like, how in the hell do you afford this?
I wonder that too.
And then, 5 years later, they're split up and everyone's broke now because no one can afford the house and all the trucks and skidoos and boats and all the fun things. And it's like, well, yeah,
it's really disappointing. And I'm not going to lie. Like, I make decent money. I really do. And
brag some more.
Right. But at the same time, what
cost?
I look at people and I'm like, how do you have that big of a house? How do you go on all of these lavish vacations? Like, what's the secret I'm making? I don't even buy a lot of stuff. I'm like very aware of consumerism and I don't want to buy a lot of stuff.
Single without kids.
Well,
like you add kids and then it's like, well, that's
I can't even imagine how people have kids. It's really, no, it sucks. It sucks. I can't.
Well, I mean, I could send you some videos on how people have kids.
Well, I know. I just don't know. I don't know how they fit it into their life. So it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I know my father-in-law, he's a real worrier, and he's like, I'm at the age where he's no longer worrying about me and my wife. He's like worried about my kids. It's like he's seeing the world as it is. And he's just like, how in the hell? Like I I have to live as long as I can so that I can worry longer for them. But it's true. It's like in Canada right now, the housing prices are insane. Like young people can't buy a house. They just can't. And then like you said, and then you can't really rent either. But I don't know, maybe that's all right. Maybe you stick around with your parents forever and the family becomes tighter, and I don't know. You were looking for something. Did you find it?
Oh yeah, it was in the workplace. It was boomers are like the only people that are happy in the workplace. That's what it was. And now that
they don't care.
Oh,
like,
well, they don't.
I'm retired. This is just for shits and giggles.
Yeah. Maybe we'll cover
honestly
something on that next time.
My wife and I were in our mid-40s and we're just kind of enjoying our careers now. I mean, I'm starting from scratch doing the podcast and stuff, so I'm not enjoying it much because I'm not making much money, but our kids we're kind of becoming empty nesters and stuff, and it's like it's almost like we get a second chance at our careers and stuff. And so I could kind of see how maybe older people are happier because they don't have to worry about their kids and stuff as much.
I think there's like the socioeconomic piece of it again, where you look at boomers who grew up before technology and always on, and they've made their money and they're the leaders and they're the managers, they're the decision makers. They've got all this money wrapped up in their houses and their property values, and millennials. And then like Gen Z is even worse off, but like millennials a lot of us can't buy houses. A lot of us are living paycheck to paycheck, and the dollar doesn't go as far as it used to. And so an accumulating savings isn't feasible for everybody else, despite maybe having higher salaries than what they did, the boomers did at their age. And that's stressful. It impacts my mental health all the time.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Even my son, who's 19 going to university, is like, I feel like I have to make sure I pick a class that I definitely want and need for the future, because if I don't, it's so freaking expensive school that it may make or break me in the future. So it's like,
oh, totally.
Do I spend thousands of dollars?
Student debt. We all have student debt, and at least in this country, and the boomers don't, because it costs them 50 cents to go to school. Like I remember, I forget who it was, but they paid a total of like $4,000 for an in-state school. Not living, but like tuition for 4 years. That can't get you a class.
Yeah.
These days.
I know. Depends on the school, but yeah, man. And then again, we talk about, not that we're pro. Well, I guess I'm kind of pro Sweden and Norway and Scandinavia. Then you go to the EU and it's free education there, and you can bounce around from country to country, and they'll accept you as a student for university. But they have a lot of things right. I mean, not everything, but I could see why boomers are more happy than the people that are poor. Not that boomers are rich, but you know what I'm saying.
I mean, they have more net worth than millennials do.
So,
well,
what do we do about that? What's our solution?
Tax them.
Tax the old.
Tax the people that have the money that they're hoarding it. That's what it's all about.
Oh boy. See, we did it again. Now I'm all depressed.
I thought this wasn't too depressing today.
It's not too depressing, I guess, but it always boils down to finances.
It does. I mean, that's the reality, though. There's nothing that impacts people's mental health, I don't think, more than their economic situation. It's like, if you didn't imagine not knowing where your next meal was coming from. And this is how I grew up. Like, we didn't always know where our next meal was coming from. So imagine that feeling like shit already. And then you've got like the basic human needs of your life that you can't meet.
Right.
Or you you work in 2 jobs just to keep the lights on.
But then you brag that you're the wealthiest country in the world or whatever. It's like,
we are the United States is the wealthiest country the world's ever seen, and we can do better.
Yeah. Wealthier doesn't mean happier.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, that's another one. Yep. Another one in the books.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah. Thanks to everyone who's listening.
I don't know if we learned anything or not, or we just bitched some. But,
no, I think we had some productive conversation.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, I'm just being facetious. Yeah. But yes, again, if you have any topics or any articles that you want us to take a look at, feel free to send it to us. And make sure to watch and listen to Eyes Wide Open with Nick. And you say it, Nick.
Oh, Bunny Hugs and Mental Health with Todd. And those links are in the show notes, wherever you are listening.
Yes, and pet your doggy. I can hear him barking.
Is that, you can?
Yeah.
I can't even hear him. That's weird. The noise canceling must be really working. All right.
Till next time.
Bye, guys. This has been our mental health headline hot takes.
We're so glad you came.
Remember, when you heal yourself,
you heal the world.
Be sure to like this video, leave comments, and suggest articles for future episodes.
Hit subscribe to Eyes Wide Open
and Bunny Hugs and Mental Health.